once I got into this whole social media world and growth and monetization and brand deals, my definition of success started changing. If numbers were up, I felt really good. If not, I spiraled. And I started to compare myself to others. Whenever I saw someone else having more success than me, I felt envy. And even though I was achieving everything that I wanted, I was not at peace. And my ambition kept getting louder and louder and louder. And that's when I hit rock bottom. And this is it. I still cannot believe, but welcome to the Awakened Entrepreneur Show. This podcast has been in the making for years. Well, not really in the making. I just had the idea that I wanted to do a podcast, but I just didn't want to do it about social media or marketing or AI because it just didn't feel really genuine and authentic. And that's what I want this podcast to be about. Like, there's so many podcasts on marketing, social media, AI, but none, or at least I haven't discovered yet. Maybe I should do my market research better. None of the podcasts that I have listened to delve into spirituality, faith, God, all this for entrepreneurs. And you know, if you've been following me for a while, you know how important this is to me and how I took a huge leap in my business and I pivoted everything last year. And that's how the Awakened Entrepreneur was born. So I just want to say thank you for being here. I am here in my living room if you're watching on YouTube, and it took me a while to set everything up to find the perfect lighting. Because I can get a little perfectionist with all of these things, but I've also learned to let go and release that perfectionist inside of me and just start raw, unfiltered, real, because this is what this podcast is about, sharing real, raw stories that will hopefully help you in your entrepreneurial journey, will help you find some grounding, improve your mindset, your habits, and most importantly, build a life and business that feel good, that feel aligned. And yeah, so I just want to create a positive impact on my listeners and on my viewers, on you. I do have a script, but I want this to be more conversational because yeah, it's like, I want to have a conversation with you, my friend, the viewer, the listener, and bring you into my world and share some things that maybe I haven't shared on social media. So this is the perfect place. So whether you are a new entrepreneur or you have been in the game for a while and you are looking for more purpose, you're looking for more clarity, you're looking to find a spiritual practice that will keep you grounded, that will give you faith, or just grow your business in a soul-aligned way, this podcast is for you, my friend. And this first episode is a very important episode for me because I'm going to be sharing with you the story of how my life, my business, and my identity completely transformed over the past year. If you've been following me for a while, you probably know that I took a huge leap last year and I pivoted my entire business to honor God. It was led to Bali, where he called me there, and since then my life has changed completely and I had this awakening. So today's episode is really about my awakening. I had ChatGPT come up with some questions, so ChatGPT is kind of like interviewing me right now, and I'll be answering those questions. But as I said before, I want this to be very conversational. So let's get started. Obviously, I have to take you back to the very beginning, which is life before the awakening, life before being an awakened entrepreneur. And it goes back to 2018 when I started freelancing with a clear goal in mind: freedom. My main goal back then was to be able to get some clients and travel the world with my laptop. I wanted to experience that freedom that I had been seeing other people online achieving. I actually met a group of Spanish people when I was traveling in Bali in 2018, and they were freelancers and they were working from Bali. And for me, that was like, oh my God, I want to experience that as well. So I already planted that seed on my mind that I wanted that type of freedom. I honestly had like no huge ambitions. Money was definitely not a main driver for my business. I just wanted to experience that freedom and bring my laptop with me. Simple dreams, simple life, one goal. And it worked. I got some clients. Then I launched my first business, the IG Creator Academy, which maybe some of you know me from. And I started teaching content strategy, Instagram marketing, monetization, and everything was moving really, really fast. The first year was a hit. I made lots of sales. My account exploded. I was really getting all of these dopamine hits from success that I was flying. I was high as a kite on success. But there was one key problem. I was building all of this on shaky ground. I didn't know who I really was. I never worked on my personal growth or development. I did not have a spiritual practice. I was just hustling. And everything I did came from a place of looking for approval, recognition, and acceptance. And this comes back to some childhood traumas that I will be sharing in future episodes. But basically, I was just looking for validation through my business, through sales, through numbers, and I got it. I got that sense of validation within my first year. But then in the second year, everything changed. And before telling you what happened in the second year, I want to point out the definition of success that we have. Okay, I mentioned that when I first started, my main goal was to achieve freedom, and I achieved that. And that was my definition of success back then. But then once I achieved it, it completely got blocked by all of the successes from other people that I was following. So I want to point this out because I'm pretty sure that you who are listening or watching right now have felt the same. You have a goal. You have clarity on your goal, but then you go on social media and you start seeing other people's goals, other people's achievements, and then you start doubting whether or not your goal is valid, whether or not your goal is big enough, and that starts shifting or changing the vision of success or the definition of success that you have. So for me, once I got into this whole social media world and growth and monetization and brand deals, my definition of success started changing. If numbers were up, I felt really good. If not, I spiraled. And I started to compare myself to others. And even though I was doing really well in terms of business, whenever I saw someone else having more success than me, I felt envy. And even though I was achieving everything that I wanted, I was not at peace. And my ambition kept getting louder and louder and louder. And that's when I hit rock bottom. So in my second year of business, things changed. I went through a personal hardship. It was a breakup with my partner from 4 years. It was a long relationship. It was almost like one of the foundations for my life and also for my business. And things ended really badly. And that's when everything started spiraling down. I'm pretty sure that that had a huge effect in the way that I showed up, in the way that I created content, and my energy in general. And that started to affect my business. Sales started to drop massively. I used to get a lot of inbound brand deals, and all of a sudden I was getting none. And it got to a point where I went from having 5-figure months to less than $1,000 a month. So you can imagine what that did to my ego, right? And I tried so many different things. I joined new courses. I was trying new strategies. I was really trying hard, but the more I tried, the harder it felt, and the more my ego was bruised. And it got to a point where even though I was showing up and creating content, I was thinking, this doesn't even feel like me anymore. And it was really painful because I had built something that I wasn't aligned with anymore. I had no idea how to change. I was in this like constant negative loop of comparison, of fear, of doubt. And back then I was already doing some rituals that I like to call that really helped me go through that dark phase. Otherwise, I would have probably quit, but I was already doing therapy thanks to that relationship, and I'm still doing therapy, and I love and I highly recommend to anyone, to any entrepreneur, that you should have a therapist and you should see your therapist at least once per month. So I was doing therapy. I had already started to meditate. So the thing is that this breakup was like my first micro awakening because it made me realize a lot of the flaws that I had as a person. And I was like, okay, I don't want to hurt people. I've done things that I'm not proud of, and I want to be a good person. So I went down the route of personal development, personal growth, meditation, and I started learning about the mind and energetics. So that was like my first micro awakening that really got me a little bit more balanced, which really helped in that year when things weren't going well. So I was meditating, I was journaling every day, I was doing therapy. And even though things were still not getting better, this allowed me to stay afloat. Otherwise, as I said, I would have probably just quit my business and don't know what would I be doing right now. But that really helped. But even so, I continued launching things, I continued trying, but there was this huge disconnect that I still felt with everything that I was doing. And it wasn't until 2024, which was 1 year later, that I was speaking with my coach. I had launched a new offer, which was the AI Creator Academy. It was doing really, really well. Like my business was starting to come up again. Like, you know, business goes like this. It's like a roller coaster. So I was already starting to like go on the high slope, but it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like, it felt like something was missing. So then what happened is that I remember having a conversation with my coach, telling her like, I feel like I have so much more to give than just AI, than just marketing or Instagram. I've been going through so much. I've grown so much as a person. I've learned so much about the mind, about energetics, spirituality, and I'm really passionate about this. And I'm really passionate about helping other people that might have gone through a similar patch like me, but they just stay there. I got lucky because I found the resources. My business started growing again, so I was able to hire a coach. I was able to pay for therapists, you know. But there's some people that stay stuck in the dark hole, and I fully believe that every single person in this world has the skills to become an entrepreneur. And I believe that we all have God-given gifts. And if we use these gifts in service of others, the world would be so different. Everyone would be fulfilled. Everyone would be doing what they really came to this life for. Yeah, so basically that's what I was telling my coach. And she told me like, Juan, well, pivot. Like, you have the green light, just pivot. And that moment was like a huge realization for me. I felt like this weight was lifted off my shoulders and I felt free. And I was like, I'm even getting goosebumps right now just talking about this. So that was like the moment where I made that decision. The moment I made that decision, things started shifting. I got an opportunity to speak in that event that was for soul-aligned businesses to talk about mindset, spirituality, energetics. I don't know how they found me because back then I had my two accounts. One was about Instagram, the other one was about AI. No idea how they found me. God sent them to me and it was a beautiful experience. And then I started getting like podcast recommendations about pivoting and spirituality. When I made that decision, things started shifting, and that's when I booked my one-way ticket to Bali. Bali was my real awakening. When I arrived to Bali, I knew deep in my heart that this was going to be a spiritual journey. As I said before, I came from the whole world of meditation, energetics, law of attraction, because that was what I had access to, especially after my breakup and throughout my dark year in business, which wasn't that bad in the end. But you know, at that time, I saw it all great. Those were the things that were like helping me stay afloat. And it's what Christians called New Age. But that was really what brought me to Bali. And that was the bridge that took me to my real spiritual awakening, which happened in Bali. So when I got to Bali, I actually journaled about this. In my journal, I said, I know this trip is going to be a spiritual journey, and I know I'm going to meet my spiritual mentor. I kid you not. A few days after I arrived to Bali, I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw the profile of this spiritual entrepreneur who was into fitness, into AI, based in Bali. I was like, oh, well, that's amazing. I'm going to contact him so that we can connect. And he replied right away. And I was like, wow. Because he had a huge following, and sometimes people with big followings don't reply, but he got back to me right away, and he invited me to come to Canggu. I was in Kuta at the moment. He invited me to come to Canggu, and I did it. I came to Canggu. We met up for coffee one day, and he told me his whole story as a Christian entrepreneur, and I was so inspired by his story, by all the ups and downs he had in his journey, and how God had always lifted him up. And it was just in awe. I felt a huge sense of admiration, and he invited me to come to church. And my first time in church was when I discovered the Holy Spirit. I was crying. I had goosebumps to see everyone so devoted to God, and the energy during worship. I was completely in awe, and that was when I started my real awakening. 3 weeks after I got baptized, and ever since I got baptized, my mind just flipped and my spirit feels different. It was a real awakening, nothing like I had experienced before. And just a few weeks after my awakening, the Awakened Entrepreneur was born, not as a new brand or a rebrand, but as a movement, as a rebirth. The Awakened Entrepreneur is about building a business from your spirit, not from your ego, not looking for external validation, for growth, for numbers, for sales, but looking for a true purpose, finding what this purpose is and using it to serve people in this world. I am not interested in helping people hustle their way out to burnout. I want to help you build something sustainable, sacred, and strategic, something that will feel like your divine assignment. For me, business is not separated from spirituality. Business is spiritual. Our business is our ministry. And as I said before, we all have a set of skills, a God-given gift that sadly most people never discover. But if we were all able to discover what this is and put it in practice in service of others, the world would be such a different place. And that is my mission. My mission is to help as many entrepreneurs as possible and as many people as possible, because maybe you're not an entrepreneur, but once you listen to this, something changes in your mind, something clicks in your head, and you're like, well, maybe I got what it takes. Maybe I do have a skill that I can use to help other people. If we're all helping each other, imagine the beautiful place, the beautiful world we would be living in. So before ending this first episode, I'm still getting goosebumps about it. I'm so grateful that you stay till the end listening to my story. I want to share a little bit of what can you expect in this podcast. This show is going to be a mix of solo episodes like today, which will mostly be stories about my journey and the lessons that I've learned and how can you apply these lessons into your life. But I'm also going to be inviting guests. A very exciting part of this show is going to be the guest interviews. I already have the first one planned with my spiritual mentor, Jordan, which will be joining us for episode 4. But I'll be bringing guests to talk about the mindset, to talk about business, talk about marketing, spirituality, faith, the mind, the brain, all of these things that I'm so passionate about and that I know will serve you in your entrepreneurial journey. I also want to challenge people. I want to bring people that maybe they don't believe in God, and I want to ask them, do you believe in God? And if not, why? And what do you believe in? I want to make this place a space for conversation, for challenging each other, for challenging the status quo as well. So stay tuned for all of these incredible things that are coming. And thank you for staying and listening to my story and how the Awakened Entrepreneur program and the Awakened Entrepreneur show were born. And if you're here, I believe it's for a reason. If something in this episode spoke to you, please share it with others. Leave a review in Spotify or Apple iTunes or wherever you're listening to. If you're watching on YouTube, comment, share it with your friends, like it. Let me know what you like the most about this show. I really need your support so that this show can grow and reach millions of people, because if this message reaches more and more people start becoming entrepreneurs and following their God-given skills, I promise the world will change. So help me spread this mission, because you're not here to build like everyone else. You're here to build awakened. See you in the next episode. Bye.